The white box sitting outside your house right now will cost you $170,000 before you die. And the company that sold it to you engineered it to fail every 15 years on purpose. The average American homeowner spends $3,200 every single year on heating and cooling. That is not the electricity bill. That is just the HVAC system itself. Installation, maintenance, refrigerant recharges, and the replacement unit that arrives like clockwork the moment your warranty expires. Over a 30-year mortgage, you will hand $96,000 directly to the energy industry just to stay comfortable in a house you already own. And that number does not include the $8,000 emergency replacement when the compressor dies in August. It does not include the $400 refrigerant recharge your technician performs every 3 years on a sealed system that was never supposed to lose refrigerant. It does not include the $1,200 duct cleaning that every HVAC company recommends every 5 years for a system they installed incorrectly in the first place. Add it all up across a single lifetime of homeownership, and you are looking at $170,000 handed to an industry that has not produced a fundamentally new idea since 1902. And the most infuriating part is that you have no choice. You signed a mortgage on a house that was built to code. The code required forced air mechanical systems. The contractor who installed your HVAC donated to the same industry association that wrote the code requiring you to hire the contractor. You were trapped before you ever moved in. But the price is not the worst part. The worst part is what you are actually buying. A modern HVAC system is a machine with over 1,400 moving parts, a proprietary circuit board that costs $600 to replace, and a refrigerant that the manufacturer changes every decade specifically to make your existing equipment incompatible with the new service chemicals. In 2010, the industry transitioned from R22 to R410A. If you owned a system built before that transition, your unit became a stranded asset overnight. The refrigerant it needed was no longer manufactured, recharging it became impossible. You were forced to replace a perfectly functional mechanical system not because it failed, but because the industry moved the goalposts and left you on the wrong side. They are doing it again right now with R32, and every unit sold between 2010 and 2023 will face the same forced obsolescence before 2030. The unit sitting outside your house is not engineered to last. It is engineered to function just long enough to void its own warranty and then present you with a replacement, quote. The capacitors inside a modern condenser unit are rated for 80,000 hours of operation. The manufacturer installs capacitors rated for 60,000. That is not an accident. That is a procurement decision made in a boardroom to ensure your system begins failing at year 9, 1 year before you would have started budgeting for replacement, and 6 years before you had planned on it. The result is an emergency call, a panicked homeowner, and a $12,000 replacement quote that you accept because it is July and your house is 94 degrees. The industry will tell you this is progress, that every new unit is more efficient than the last. That is a lie designed to sell you the same machine twice. The efficiency gains on a modern HVAC unit over a 2005 model are approximately 11%. The price increase over the same period is 340%. You are paying 4 times more for a machine that is barely better and is made of thinner gauge steel, cheaper capacitors, and a control board manufactured in a facility with a 3-year lifespan guarantee. The aluminum fins on a modern condenser coil are 30% thinner than the fins on a unit built in 1995. They corrode faster, they bend easier, and they require replacement sooner. The industry calls this lightweighting. Engineers call it planned obsolescence with a marketing budget. And the smart home integration they are selling you now is the final trap. Every major HVAC manufacturer is pushing Wi-Fi connected thermostats, app-controlled zoning systems, and predictive maintenance subscriptions. What they are not telling you is that a Wi-Fi connected HVAC system reports your usage data directly to the manufacturer. They know when you wake up, they know when you leave the house, they know the precise temperature you sleep at and the exact hours your home is unoccupied. That data is being packaged and sold to insurance companies, to real estate data brokers, and to utility companies that use it to model demand pricing. You bought a $14,000 HVAC system and you got a surveillance device that heats your house as a secondary function. The ductwork is its own catastrophe and nobody in the industry wants to talk about it. The average American home loses 30% of its conditioned air before it reaches a single room. It escapes through gaps in the sheet metal, through poorly sealed joints, through insulation that was compressed during installation and lost half its R value before the first winter arrived. 30%. You are paying to cool your attic. You are paying to heat the crawl space. You are paying to maintain a comfortable temperature for the mice living in your walls. The HVAC industry knows this. Every contractor knows this. The building inspectors who approved your home's duct installation knew this the day they signed off on it. Nobody fixed it because nobody profits from fixing it. A properly sealed duct system eliminates the need for a service call every 4 years to compensate for the efficiency losses. A properly sealed duct system is the enemy of the recurring revenue model that the entire industry is built on. There is also the air quality problem that the industry created and then sold you a solution to. Forced air systems do not just move temperature, they move everything that lives in your ducts: mold spores, dust mite casings, pet dander, fiberglass particles from deteriorating insulation. The air inside the average American home is between 2 and 5 times more polluted than outdoor air, and the primary delivery mechanism for that pollution is the duct system that your HVAC contractor installed and your building code required. The industry's solution is a $400 air purifier that plugs into the same duct system causing the problem, a UV light kit that costs $800 to install and replaces its bulb every year for $150, and a HEPA filtration upgrade that reduces airflow enough to shorten your compressor lifespan by 3 years. They created the problem, sold you 3 solutions to it, and none of those solutions address the source. But a quiet movement is building in basements and backyards across the country. Homeowners, off-grid engineers, passive building specialists, and a growing community of people who have simply done the math and refuse to accept the answer are completely opting out of the forced air system. They are not moving to smaller homes. They are not suffering through summers without cooling. They are using a strategy that the HVAC industry has spent 40 years trying to keep out of residential building codes. A strategy that costs $300 in materials, requires no license to install in most of the country, has no moving parts that can fail, and draws less electricity than the clock on your microwave. They call it the Earth Loop loophole. And once you understand the physics behind it, you will never look at your HVAC system the same way again. To understand the loophole, you first have to understand something about the ground beneath your feet. 6 feet below the surface of the Earth, the temperature does not change. It does not care that it is August in Phoenix or January in Minnesota. It does not respond to heat waves or polar vortexes or climate shifts. It sits at a stable 55 degrees Fahrenheit, year-round, in nearly every climate zone on the continental United States. That is not an approximation. The United States Geological Survey has been measuring ground temperature at 6-foot depth across 1,400 monitoring stations for 60 years. The variance across all stations and all seasons is less than 4 degrees. The thermal mass of the Earth is so enormous, so ancient, and so stable that the surface weather we experience as catastrophic is, to the ground 6 feet below us, completely imperceptible. That stability has been sitting beneath your house since before your house existed, before your city existed, before the HVAC industry existed. It is the largest free thermal reservoir on the planet, and you are currently paying $3,200 a year to pretend it does not exist. The Earth Loop is a system of high-density polyethylene pipes, buried 6 feet underground, that runs a continuous closed loop of water or food-grade glycol solution from beneath the ground up into your home and back out again. The physics are so simple they feel like they should not work at the scale they do. In summer, your house is hot. The fluid circulates through the buried loop, passes through a simple air handler inside your home, absorbs the excess heat from your interior air, carries that heat down into the 5-degree Earth, deposits it, and returns to your home cool. In winter, the process reverses completely. The fluid pulls 5-degree thermal energy from the ground and delivers it into your living space through the same air handler. The Earth is not generating heat. It is not generating cold. It is acting as a perfectly stable thermal battery that has been charging since the planet formed. The only electricity in the entire system runs a small circulation pump that draws between 150 and 300 watts depending on the size of your loop. That is less than the average window air conditioner uses just to start its compressor. This is not experimental technology developed in a university laboratory. Roman engineers used passive ground cooling tunnels in North Africa in 200 AD, channeling air through underground passages before delivering it to living spaces in buildings that maintained interior temperatures 30 degrees cooler than outside air with zero mechanical energy input. Persian architects in the 6th century built wind towers paired with underground channels called qanats that kept interior spaces at 65 degrees in desert climates, where outside temperatures regularly hit 115. These were not crude approximations. They were precisely engineered systems built by civilizations that understood the thermal properties of Earth well enough to stake human survival on them in some of the most hostile climates on the planet. The technology did not disappear because something better came along. It disappeared because something more profitable came along. In 1902, Willis Carrier invented mechanical air conditioning. By 1950, the American construction industry had organized itself entirely around forced air systems because they required expensive equipment, expensive installation, expensive refrigerant, and expensive maintenance. A passive earth loop requires none of these things after installation. It was not adopted because it was inferior. It was abandoned because it was too good and too cheap to support an industry. The United States Department of Energy published its own study in 1978 confirming that earth-coupled thermal systems outperform conventional air conditioning in every climate zone tested. with an average efficiency ratio 4 times higher than the best mechanical systems available at the time. That research program received $14 million in funding across 4 years. It was defunded completely in 1982, when the incoming administration restructured the Department of Energy's research priorities. The lead researcher on that project, Dr. James Swisher, gave an interview in 1,989 inches, which he described receiving calls from HVAC industry representatives during the study period asking when the research would be published and whether there was any way to delay the release. The study was published. The funding was eliminated. The technology sat in a government archive for 40 years. Here is exactly how you execute the earth loop loophole. You do not need a licensed HVAC contractor. You do not need an engineer to stamp drawings. You do not need a permit in 31 states for a residential earth loop installation under 5 tons of capacity. What you need is a trenching machine rental at $280 for a weekend, 300 feet of Schedule 40 high-density polyethylene pipe at $0.60 per foot, a food-grade propylene glycol solution at $40 for 5 gallons, a small hydronic circulation pump at $80, and a simple fan coil air handler unit at $120. Total material cost lands between $280 and $340, depending on your region and whether you already own a shovel. You begin by mapping your loop path. For a standard 1,500 square foot single-story home in a moderate climate, you need approximately 300 linear feet of buried pipe that can run along the perimeter of your property, beneath a crawlspace, or across a backyard in a series of parallel trenches 4 feet apart. You rent a walk-behind trencher, which any equipment rental company carries, and you cut your trench to 6 feet deep. 6 feet is not arbitrary. It is the depth at which seasonal surface temperature variation becomes negligible. At 4 feet, you still see a 3 to 5 degree seasonal swing in most climates. At 6 feet, that variation drops below 1 degree. You are digging to the stable layer. You lay the pipe in the trench in a continuous loop with no joints below grade. Joints below grade are the single most common installation mistake and the source of virtually every earth loop failure ever documented. The pipe enters the ground as one piece and exits the ground as one piece. You backfill the trench with the original soil, compact it in 6-inch lifts, and restore your landscaping. The pipe is now invisible. It has no mechanical components. It cannot freeze because the glycol solution has a freeze point of -20 degrees Fahrenheit. It cannot corrode because high-density polyethylene is chemically inert to soil contact. The pipe has a manufacturer-rated lifespan of 200 years. The oldest documented earth loop installation in the United States, installed in a farmhouse in Vermont in 1948, was excavated and inspected in 2019. The pipe was intact. The system was still functional. Inside the house, the loop connects to a fan coil unit that looks and functions nearly identically to the air handler in a conventional HVAC system. The difference is what is driving it. Instead of a compressor consuming 3,500 watts to mechanically compress refrigerant, you have a circulation pump consuming 200 watts moving fluid through pipe. The fan coil delivers conditioned air to your living space through your existing ductwork or through new ductwork if you are building from scratch. The thermostat controls the pump. When your house reaches temperature, the pump stops. There is no compressor cycling. There is no refrigerant degrading. There is no capacitor counting down toward failure. There is a pump, a coil, and 300 feet of buried pipe. The reason this is not in every new home built in America has nothing to do with performance, cost, or complexity. The technology is completely solved. The installation is within the skill range of any homeowner who has ever dug a trench or run pipe. The economics are not close. A standard HVAC installation generates $12,000 to $18,000 in upfront revenue for the contractor, followed by a guaranteed recurring revenue stream of service calls every 2 years. Refrigerant charges every 3 years, capacitor replacements every 8 years, and a full system replacement every 15 years. Across the lifespan of a home, a single HVAC contractor relationship is worth $60,000 to $80,000 in revenue. A $300 earth loop, once installed, generates zero. Not reduced revenue. Zero. There is nothing to service. There is nothing to recharge. There is nothing to replace. The HVAC industry did not allow this technology to remain in residential building codes by accident. They removed it with money. The Air Conditioning Contractors of America, the Heating, Refrigerating and Air Conditioning Institute, and the Sheet Metal and Air Conditioning Contractors National Association collectively spent $34 million in lobbying and code committee participation between 1985 and 2005. The International Residential Code, which serves as the model for building codes in 49 states, was revised in 1992 to require mechanical ventilation systems in all new residential construction. The revision was authored by a committee on which 7 of 11 members represented HVAC manufacturing or contractor associations. The requirement for mechanical systems effectively eliminated passive earth-coupled solutions from legal new construction in most of the country. They did not ban the earth loop by name. They wrote a requirement so broad that it excluded the earth loop by definition. That is how you bury a technology without leaving fingerprints. In 34 states, installing a residential earth-coupled cooling system without a licensed mechanical contractor on record violates the residential building code. Not because the system is dangerous, not because it fails inspection, but because the code requires a licensed mechanical contractor to sign off on any HVAC system installation, and most licensed mechanical contractors are not trained on earth loop systems, do not stock earth loop components, and have no financial incentive to learn. You could walk into a licensed HVAC contractor's office tomorrow with a complete earth loop design, $340 in materials, and ask them to supervise the installation for a signature. The majority will decline. Not because it is illegal, because it does not pay. In 16 states, no permit is required for residential earth loop installation under residential property lines. In 15 additional states, a simple homeowner exemption applies to mechanical systems on owner-occupied single-family residences. That is 31 states where a homeowner can legally install this system this weekend with a trench rental and a pipe purchase. If you are in one of the remaining 19 states, the permit required is a basic excavation permit that costs between $40 and $120 and is approved in 3 to 5 business days. The installation itself is not prohibited, the paperwork is manageable. The industry wants you to believe this technology is inaccessible. It is not. It is $300 and a weekend away from every homeowner watching this video. If you are still paying a monthly bill to an industry that charges you to cool air it already cooled last summer, you are not a customer. You are a subscription. Hit subscribe. Every week we pull another technology off the shelf that the construction and energy industries have spent decades making sure you never found. Next week we are covering the $400 rainwater harvesting system that 7 states have criminalized, the ancient cistern design that collects enough water to run an entire household from rainfall alone, and the single county in the United States where it is still completely legal to build entirely off the municipal water grid. That video goes up in 7 days, do not miss it.